this slide. And you may have seen this slide. And I love this slide, and I probably will always use this slide, because this is one of the first publications that was done in the Blue Journal back in 2017 when we were just jumping into the world of Janus kinase inhibition on how these therapies work. It's a simple cartoon schematic, but it's the most powerful schematic when I'm teaching residents, when I'm lecturing, and frankly, sometimes when I'm even explaining to patients how these treatments work. JAK inhibition is actually incredibly intuitive and frankly so easy mechanistically to understand why it's a dermatologic win. How does this work? The two blue diagram Y-shaped looking things you see are the JAK receptors. They're always coupled. And if you've heard me at other meetings or heard me here, I call them the dysfunctional husband and wife who are in therapy. JAK1 and JAK2, they're always fighting with each other because they're always linked. And then with certain disease states, atopic dermatitis, vitiligo, whatever you may be, the yellow cytokine, so the pesky child, comes in between the couple. It binds to the husband-wife couple, to the boyfriend, girlfriend, to the partners, whatever you want to call them, to disrupt their signaling. They get irritated, they get aggravated, and they cause lots of fury within the cell, which is STAT. And that upregulation of STAT, because the child got the parents really angry, is what causes that downstream inflammation in the nucleus. And I know that's a simple analogy, but it makes sense if you think about it. And it also makes sense because you can now predict based on which JAK pair. So JAK1-2, JAK1-3, JAK2 TYK2, JAK2 JAK2, there's all different variations of the couples. But knowing which cytokines predominantly signal through which pair helps you then predict which disease is going to be the most affected. So speaking of diseases, this slide is a slide that I showed the first time I gave a JAK inhibitor lecture back in 2017. And I had nothing on the slide except to say, hopefully soon one of these diseases. In 2026 at AAD in Denver, this is the first time I can show you this slide that now lists 4 and 5 FDA-approved indications with a 6th just about on the way, which is incredibly helpful. So I'm going to cover each of these disease states briefly. So, oral JAK inhibitors for atopic dermatitis. What's new? What's hot? Well, you know that baricitinib is FDA-approved in Europe, abrocitinib and upadacitinib are FDA-approved in the United States. But what's new in these therapies? We know that these are JAK1 selective and JAK1/2 inhibitors respectively, high levels of efficacy, really interesting data on safety. But what's new since we last met last year? Well, this is a busy slide because it's a poster, but I'm incredibly proud to share this poster because this is the first time I'm going to be able to show you data 7 years out on upadacitinib looking at pooled safety and efficacy. You don't have to read the whole poster right now. You're welcome to take a picture. You can also see it online. What do we know about long-term safety? What we now know 7 years into this journey is that upadacitinib is exceedingly safe and effective for our patients. And we know that the rates of adverse events in the long term mirrored with no new serious safety signals and very consistent clean safety profile compared to what we saw early on, which is incredible news because that should give us more confidence to use these. So I put together this side-by-side comparison showing long-term safety of upadacitinib because now we have 6-year integrated data, 7-year I just showed you the poster, and for baricitinib we have almost 5-year data. And ultimately what you can know is that 5 years into having these treatments, there's no new safety signals that were unexpected, and the rates of the very scary cardiovascular and thromboembolic events are very similar to the background rates for atopic dermatitis. So the good news is we're learning that these therapies are exceedingly safe in dermatology disease. Screening patients and monitoring lab work, obviously very important. And in 2025, we also got some new abrocitinib data which was a real-world head-to-head study. It was a 52-week study of abrocitinib versus upadacitinib, which showed very nice comparable equivalence and efficacy. And then we also have adolescent data that was published by Amy Paller's group looking at abrocitinib and showing no new safety signals in the adolescent population. So that's atopic dermatitis. Now let's move to alopecia areata. This year now, I can tell you we have 3 FDA-approved treatments for alopecia areata. Last year, I only told you about 2. So since last year, we now have a 3rd. You're going to hear more about hair later, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. You'll hear from Jerry Shapiro, who's a guru in this, a little bit later. But baricitinib, ritlecitinib, and duruxolitinib, all 3 FDA-approved for alopecia areata. Please keep in mind, ritlecitinib 50 milligrams is the only one approved down to the age of 12. But who ever thought that we would have 3 oral treatments for alopecia areata? Gone are the days of simply bringing people in for intralesional steroid injections. Okay, what's new in psoriasis? Okay, well, I'm really excited to share this. Why? Because this is data that's actually being shown here. This was just shown today, repeat, today, in the late breaker session on envudeucitinib. Envudeucitinib is a new TYK2 inhibitor for psoriasis, showing over 40% PASI 100 at week 24. Oral medication, 40% of patients and more got PASI 100. Pretty impressive data. Over close to 70% got PASI 90, so it's really, really exciting. And zasocitinib, another oral TYK2 inhibitor that, though TYK2 is not a traditional JAK inhibitor, it's in the JAK-STAT pathway, and zasocitinib now showing rapid reduction down to PASI 75 and PASI 90, also shown in late breaker. Where are we in hand eczema? Chronic hand eczema now has a treatment. The reason I'm showing you this slide, it's another busy one. It's an incredibly important one. Why? Because chronic hand eczema is a neglected disease in dermatology. Because half the time we say, oh, it's maybe psoriasis, it's maybe contact derm, it's maybe irritant. But if you look at all different subtypes of chronic hand eczema, Pompholyx, allergic contact dermatitis, irritant contact dermatitis, what you see is that all of these graphs look the same. Because delgocitinib, which is now our only FDA-approved topical pan-JAK inhibitor, has shown beautiful efficacy in all subtypes of chronic hand eczema. And I think all of us in the room have been in those scenarios where we biopsy someone's hand trying to figure out what it is, and what do you get back on the biopsy? Chronic spongiotic psoriasiform dermatitis. And then you think to yourself, well, why did I do the biopsy? Because that's no help. We are learning more and more about chronic hand eczema, and delgocitinib has shown some really exciting data on that as our only FDA-approved topical. And there is now a new study showing head-to-head and pediatric evidence. So now we have 52-week long-term safety. We also have a new study in adolescent patients with hand eczema. Really important to know. Think about your sports, kids who play sports, who may be having irritation from constant usage of their hands, sporting equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So that's new since last year as well. Okay, now everyone knows that vitiligo is my wheelhouse. That's where I live a lot. So I'm thrilled to be able to share with you this. This is so hot off the press that it literally was presented today at Late Breakers. The first reveal of the phase 3 upadacitinib data, an oral treatment for vitiligo, was just shown today. My friend Thierry Passeron presented this at Late Breakers. What were the results of this oral treatment? Once daily oral pill for vitiligo. Whoever thought we would potentially have that? What I can share with you is that in both studies, statistically significant improvement in improving patients' total VASI score by 50% at the week 48 mark, and facial vitiligo showing the same. Now, the message here is that when you look at these patients, what you find, and let me show you some pictures, what you see is an incredible, robust result. This is a disease, however, that takes time. There are going to still be unmet needs in vitiligo for years to come, so I want everyone to know how excited I am about these oral treatments. But counseling our patients on long-term compliance is going to be key because vitiligo is not going to go away overnight no matter what we do. Povorcitinib for vitiligo. This is from the phase 2. Incredible, robust repigmentation. What's new since last year in povorcitinib? Well, the phase 3 data will soon be read out, and I'm excited to share that this could yet be another oral JAK inhibitor for vitiligo. And finally, ritlecitinib is also now in phase 3. The data readout should happen in a few months. They're all racing to the finish line. 3 oral therapies potentially for vitiligo, incredibly valuable and incredibly important. Let's see, we shut off. Okay, I'll keep talking because in the interest of time, I do want you to see this one picture. We have a little tech issue. Hidradenitis suppurativa, what do you need to know? Hidradenitis suppurativa will probably have a once daily oral pill for hidradenitis suppurativa potentially by the end of this year, if not the beginning of next year. Whoever thought you could treat HS with a once daily oral pill? Povorcitinib, which I just showed you for vitiligo, is likely going to come to market even sooner for HS. And I really wanted to show you this picture, but that's okay if we can't see it. It'll be in the slide. It's a picture of these patients scarring tunnels and fistulas in their underarms. So, in summary, so much happening in the world of JAKs, HS, hand eczema, atopic dermatitis, vitiligo, TIC2 for psoriasis, and HS is on the horizon. An incredible time to be a dermatologist, incredible time for us to be together at the Academy. I want to thank you all for your attention, and Daryl, I'll turn it back over to you.